Alright, welcome to part 3. So I've just kind of been through the patrol nodes. Tried recording another one and something went a little haywire, so I'm just going to migrate the AI folders over again. But it'll give us kind of a fresh slate to work with anyway, so it's actually kind of turned out nicely. So that's just popped a fresh new set of AI in here. So we'll come into our warrior and just kind of show it from scratch. So by default, parented to character. We just want to go into class settings, parent class, and come down to base melee pawn. It'll work itself out and kind of come through. Let's quickly check. Yep, so still got the construction script there from last time doing the right thing, and that's excellent. So one thing that will happen, so we've kind of gone through the patrolling, but one thing we haven't gone through yet is them actually attacking each other, which is some behavior we're certainly going to want. So I've got 2 minions here, and they're going to, relatively impressively, do absolutely nothing currently because they're both set to team 1. So neither of them wander, they're both on team 1, they're both going to be content just to stand there, which doesn't make for particularly exciting anything. So I'm going to quickly come in and make him team 2. And now they ran towards each other, so they picked each other up as targets, but they're kind of just staring at each other. So the reason for that, there's a good reason for that, they don't currently have any attack animations. So this is part of, as much as I wanted to make the pack as, you know, just drag and drop it in, here's all the functionality you need, it doesn't come with its own models. Obviously in that first video I showed kind of setting up that animation blueprint for the skeleton. So I tried to make it so that you can use it with any models, and this is part of that. So if we actually come into the warrior here, we're going to want to override a specific function, get attack animation. So here is where we get our attack animation, and this here is the reason that in that first video we went through and made them montages. You generally want your attacks to be montages, and the AI also requires that to be the case. So we did need that set up. Now, we could just plug in one attack animation there, which actually, let's show real quick. So now they're going to run to each other and actually start attacking with big epic thrust. But because we can, and because I really specifically wanted to make a system that could deal with an attack pool, which is something I was having some trouble just finding out how to do, but I've written a system which handles it quite nicely. Basically all you need to do is feed a random integer in here, and then so 0 to 3 obviously is 4 different options because it's 0 based. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's now picking one of those 4 random attack animations to play, and that's all we need. This time into animation to apply logic is again more tailored at this being scalable. When I show the ranged minions, that'll make a bit more sense, but basically you don't always want it to do, for example, to launch the projectile the instant the animation starts, because he's going to kind of sit there, notch the arrow, draw it back, and then launch it, and you want the arrow to actually spawn as projectile and go, you know, a full second into the 1.5 second animation. So there's just an automated system for that, so you actually kind of just, you look through the animation and find out how far into the animation you actually want to apply the damage. You could do it here for that big kind of thrust, you could wait half a second into the animation to apply the damage, but it doesn't serve so much of a purpose for melee so much as it does for range. So if we play that now, these two are going to run towards each other, kind of get within their attack range, and picking those random attack animations really kind of just makes for a nicer looking battle. And they're going to hack away at each other. Now, I did include just a really primitive damage and death system, so they're just kind of decreasing each other's health. One of them will die, and at the moment the death code just calls an event dispatcher that it needs to, but apart from that it just destroys the actor. So there he goes. And so he'll run back to where he came from. He just wants to return to his target objective. And actually, to kind of showcase that better, if both of these have should wander on, they'll hack at each other, and when they die, it'll go back to where it came from first of all, because it wants to return to its target point. The system was very much written with a kind of attack move in mind, so the target point is where they're trying to get to. So if you just set the target point for 2 armies to the other army's spawn point, they'll very happily run until they find an attack target, run, kill that attack target, keep looking for new attack targets, killing them until all the enemies are dead, at which point they will, move on to their objective. And it works really well for the patrol behavior as well. He's happy enough to follow his patrol route or wander around to do whatever they want to do. And then when they kind of see an enemy, they drop all that and go attack it. So that's kind of a very, very simple attack system. So what I'm going to show next is kind of just again, some of the systems that I've built to be very easily extended upon. So we've moved out of now kind of your really, really simple drag and drop functionality and moving more into kind of the really solid foundation that the system gives you. So if we override set team material, this is just something because it's very, very handy to be able to actually kind of like tell them apart. So you notice it compile and it ran there because this is actually attached to the construction script higher up, which is just lets us update it nicely. So what we're going to need just quickly, I don't really want to modify the main one, so I'm going to duplicate this material and just call it Scale Warrior Team, which is exactly the same as the original. All I'm going to do is multiply in here and set a vector parameter. So this vector parameter just gives us the ability to modify this however we'd like. So we pass in a color, and at the moment all I'm doing, so just into the base color, just a simple color modifier. It's super, super simple. But what it allows me to do is to set the minion's color based on the team. And one thing that I really, really love about the skeleton pack in particular, it does work with anything, just kind of multiplying the color in. But particularly with this one, you've actually got a different material channel for the equipment versus the base mesh. So the base mesh is just taking a second to save. There we are. The base mesh is still just your normal skeleton. And now we've got, why did I hit save again? Now we've got the equipment specifically that I'm overriding with a color. So ideally what we should have is, a normal colored skeleton, whatever that is, with a, red tinged armor or blue tinged armor or something like that. So what I'm going to do is create dynamic material instance. And I did actually have a bit more, plug and play kind of setup before, where all you needed to do was pick the parent material, and I'd assumed the parameter was team and everything, but ultimately I really don't want the system to be kind of using this specific way kind of thing. It's something that allows you to build upon it really, really easily, so I actually decided against that. And I've gone just to this set team material function, do whatever you need to do in here, whatever you want to switch on in terms of your different looking teams. If you have honestly two different races, so if you have, the skeletons versus the humans, you wouldn't even bother with this because it'd be very simple, team 1's people, team 2 skeletons. But we're going to create dynamic material instance here. From that output, we're going to set vector parameter value. I'll call this team. And I have done one quick shortcut. I've got team as an enumerator here. Now this I did put in just because it's kind of fundamental to the logic of attacking allies and not attacking allies. It is very basic. In my own game I'm using kind of a faction instead of team, but for the purpose of this being a really simple demonstration, easy to kind of get up and use, it's just team. And let me just quickly see if I bring up this. We've just got team 1, team 2, team 3, just to be really, really simple. And I commonly use a function library to deal with enumerators. So at the moment we've got team details. All it does is select a color. So if you're team 1, return blue, team 2 returns red, team 3 returns green. And this just allows me, if I have 20 different minion types and I want to change it or add a color, I don't need to go through and change that every single time. I can just say, get team color for team, plug it into this value here, and the parameter names team, so that's going to work fine. And then I'll just route this down here, reroute nodes to keep everything pretty. And we're going to want to get our mesh and set material. Now this is the dynamic material we've just affected, plugs in there. Now generally it will be element 0, but in this case, like I said, because he's set things up very, very prettily, if we open up mesh and materials, you can see element 0 is actually the skeleton base, which is not what we've kind of overridden. We're actually doing it over the top of this M-Scale Warrior 1. So actually just in this specific case, that's going to be element index 0. And again, that's why I left this as just set team material. It's just, this will change depending on the model you're setting up. But since this is being called in the construction script, what it means is, it's automatically updated. We've got our blue guy, who's oddly transparent. Might be the wrong material channel. Might just drag out those warriors again, make sure it was just not a funny kind of half update of them sitting there. Yeah, okay, he was just unhappy that it half fired that. So there's our blue guy, who is on team 1 by default. And if I change this over to team 2, he just swaps to being red, and team 3 is green. So really, really nice, pretty setup there, just for having visually distinctive teams, basically. And so now it kind of makes it really easy to drag out multiple of these guys across a line. And I'm just going to select all of those, drag out an entire copy 180 degrees, and run them up against these, and multi-change values, beautiful. And hit up that. So now we have some blue skeletons, some red skeletons, and they're just going to launch into a fight. So there is kind of the more complex part of the AI system is the targeting, so they're determining what's a valid attack target, how they pick that, making sure they efficiently and very event-driven style bind to their attack target's death, so they know when their attack target dies, when they should pick a new objective, and a whole bunch of logic like that. Also, since it's binding to an on-death event, you can call it yourself, which means you're not forced to destroy the minions. It would have been a lot easier just to kind of bind the natural on-death event of the pawn itself. But very commonly, if you're going to have kind of large-scale battles, what you actually want is a manual kind of recycling system. So where you just call a death event, you set a bunch of details, you know, after you leave it on the ground for a couple of seconds, you kind of throw it back onto the pile to stop you having to destroy and recreate a whole bunch of minions, which is quite expensive, especially if you have, you know, a lot of them running. But that kind of showcased the two different teams there kind of fighting. You'll notice he kind of attacked those two at the back there. That's because the hearing on the pawn sensing is buggy. That'll clear up 1 in 4.8, hopefully with AI perception, which this will change over using, and 2, I just haven't quite copied it over yet, but I've put in just a workaround where if you don't have an attack target and someone does damage to you, you pick them as an attack target, so that behavior won't happen. But I'll leave that here just for now. Yeah.